The Trump-engineered ceasefire between two nuclear powers demonstrates why the U.S. must not go isolationist. Hello, I'm Steve Forbes, and this is What's Ahead, where you get the insights you need to better navigate these turbulent times. President Trump, Vice President Vance, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio deserve fulsome praise for bringing about a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. The growing scale of fighting between these two nuclear-armed antagonists was spiraling into a full-blown war. U.S. diplomatic intervention has, for now, put out this growing fire. The significant achievement of Trump and his team here has been crowded out by other news. But make no mistake, if we hadn't become involved, the unthinkable, the use of nuclear weapons, could well have happened. Unfortunately, there's a growing sentiment in both political parties for the U.S. to turn its back on the world. Let Europe stew in its own juices is their attitude. If those countries want to help Ukraine, they can do it on their own dime, especially since countries like Germany aren't spending nearly enough on defense. Concerning Taiwan, these neo-isolationists ask, should the U.S. really risk a war over this island? Many skeptics are not in favor of Israel wiping out Hamas. Isolationists make the point that we should take military action only when attacked. Alliances, particularly NATO, will only get us involved in unnecessary conflicts. The one part of the world we ought to be active in, they concede, is the Americas. Hence, many supported President Trump's pressuring Panama to end the Chinese presence so near the canal. But even here, many in the far left are not in favor of America forcefully active in its own neighborhood. So much for the Monroe Doctrine. These go-it-alone perceptions were widespread in the 1930s. Believers were labeled isolationists. The Second World War, followed by the Cold War with the Soviet Union, put paid to this kind of thinking. We ignore the world at our own peril. Now, isolationism is making a comeback, fueled in no small part by our long, lethal, and frustrating military involvements in Afghanistan and Iraq. Nonetheless, these blunders should not blind us to the necessity of U.S. active leadership in keeping the world safe from the imperial ambitions of Putin, Xi Jinping, the Iranian mullahs, Kim Jong-un, and other terrorists. Not to mention preventing crises like the deep antagonism between India and Pakistan from escalating into a conflict that would be disastrous for us all. The blunt truth is that some trouble spots are not amenable to quick solutions. India and Pakistan have been at each other's throats over the Kashmir region for decades. The two countries were partitioned just before independence from Britain in 1947. India would be primarily Hindu, Pakistan Muslim. The split necessitated the most ghastly, deadly population exchange in history. Around 2 million people perished in the violent process. Kashmir is primarily Muslim, but was ruled by a Hindu. A war ensued, and the area is split now between the two countries. There have been 2 subsequent wars and countless bloody incidents over Kashmir. Pakistan is a troubled, chronically unstable country forcibly kept together by the ruling army and infested with terrorist groups. A number of Indian tourists in the Indian-ruled part of Kashmir were murdered recently by terrorists that India accuses Pakistan of fomenting and supporting. Pakistan, of course, denies this, but the country has employed terrorism to try to force India out of the disputed territory. India retaliated with air attacks, making clear it was sick of Pakistani provocations. The fighting quickly escalated. The U.S. stepped in and brought about a tense ceasefire. China is allied with Pakistan. Russia still has close relations with India. Only the U.S. could tamp things down. The lesson is we cannot safely turn our back on the world. I'm Steve Forbes. Thanks for listening. Do send in your comments and suggestions. I look forward to being with you soon again.